everyone, and welcome to our new series on the or one of the very anti-Dutch systems. Well, D4, F5, and there are many systems starting from E4, G4, H3, Queen D3. I mean, you mention it, really many anti-Dutch systems, but I believe without many doubts, Bishop G5 is the main one. Well, one cannot be mistaken for even half a second the similarities between the Trompowsky and even D5, Bishop G5, which is, let's say, the little brother of the Trompowsky. So here we have maybe, I don't know, a cousin or some other family member playing Bishop G5. Very much the same idea, the same principles, the same logic. And it's absolutely not at all surprising that we are going to see many of the players that played Bishop G5 in the Trompowsky playing this against the Dutch. For example, just for today, I have one or two games of Grandmaster Hodgson from England, maybe the most known or the most repeatedly a strong player to have played the Trompowsky. It is absolutely not a coincidence. Well, first, several words about the Dutch. Not a very popular opening at high level today. I mean, if I'm thinking really hard, I can only see Hikaru Nakamura, absolutely one of the top players in the world, that play the Dutch occasionally. Again, not as his main weapon, but playing it against absolutely the strongest players in the world. But at all, I cannot really remember when in the World Championship match, we have really seen such opening being played on a regular base. Actually, I can tell you that the last time it was played on a regular base in a World Championship match was in 1951 in the match between Botvinnik and Bronstein. Kramnik has played this opening when he was young and, I don't know, only strong, very strong, not when he was world champion level, but somewhere, when he was in 91, 92, he stopped playing it. He played the Leningrad variation mainly. There are many other systems. The Stonewall variation was played a lot by Nigel Short, obviously a challenger to the World Championship, played against Kasparov in 93, so he played the Stonewall a lot. Some other players, world champion Eljochin played this, the late and great Danish player Bent Larsen, and some other even older players like Morphy and Naidov have used this opening, but really absolutely not at the top of the opening played. Definitely not today. It's just decreasing in its popularity. But I'm not certain it's because of those anti-systems. I more believe it's because of the main systems. So, what into Bishop G5? Well, what's the idea? Just like in the Trompowsky. Exactly the same idea. Stopping the development of knight f6, or let's say not stopping, but immediately being able to capture and destroy the pawn structure. Well, black has many alternatives. Obviously, e6 is not one of them, but g6 and continuing to play normally, d6 or d5, definitely very serious moves to consider. And, well, the most natural one, which is what we are going to look today, or actually going to be today's, and the next one is h6. Well, kicking the bishop away. And here, well, g5, what seems to be an absolutely trapped bishop. Before we will go, and obviously the bishop is not trapped, well, there are some other moves like c5. Again, if you remember the Trompowsky series, which was made on the opening survey, many times the c5 ideas are very logical. Once the bishop is off c1, right? Then the queen would like to go to b6, put pressure against the d4 pawn and the b2 pawn. Indeed, this line has been played, but it seems that, well, I'm not certain if it is a correct way to play for black. Well, the best move for white, or at least the main one, should be e4. Well, many times in those systems, white is playing as energetically as possible. Take on c5 I do not like so much, because after check, and now g5, well, after bishop g3, f4, in many systems e3 is saving the bishop. Why? Because if take the bishop, queen h5 is checkmate. But hey, queen a5 was played. This is no checkmate. So this is why basically now black is winning a piece. After e4, capture. Well, we can possible to argue if white has some compensation or not, but I believe black is just better here. Handke against Berg. Well, strong players, about 2500 when it was played. Berg today is above 2600, I believe. Bermuda 2002, and black won the game. So definitely take on c5 shouldn't be white's main alternative. e4. I will say this. One of the reasons why I started with this very, how would I say, messy, complicated line is because those lines are very popular here on ICC. And it makes sense. Hey, you're playing a blitz game. You don't have to play best theory. You're not analyzing Kramnik against Nakamura. You want to play complicated, messy, maybe be able somehow to trick your opponent. I think those lines in the Dutch are maybe the trickiest one, without huge amount of theory. That's what makes them so popular online. Queen b6, well, queen h5 was a checkmate. Knight d2 seems just very normal move, with the idea knight c4 and just developing. White is going to play develop, 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 nothing else. Knight c6, rook out. Queen h5 was also played, but it is not very clear, because actually black gets quick development as well, and after take on d4, take on h5, that position is actually not incredibly clear. Seternikov against Kovalenko from 2007, and black ended up winning this one. White should be much, much, much more in fast playing. Nothing else is important. And no surprise, we are going to see two games of Hodgson, our Trompowsky player, one extremely, extremely creative player. Let's see how he plays those. Queen d5, one alternative was played by his opponent, bishop d3, castle, and now, well, just capturing in the center. Obviously taking with the e-pawn, weakening the king so much, and the g6 square, where anyhow white was going with advantage for white. It ended up winning. Maybe he could have played even better. Hodgson against Zidler from 1999. And instead of queen d5, well, queen g4 is an alternative, but just leads black into really complicated spot. After knight b4, all right, well, bishop e4, maybe d5 can be played, but Hodgson, I would look at a move like bishop e4, obviously, maybe knight c4, but Hodgson has his head in other directions with rook take b4. Well, to tell you it's the best, I don't know. Definitely it's incredibly creative move. Black played wrong. Obviously, black had to take with the queen, and now black has his queen developed. Look at white's army. I think practically this is winning for white. Seriously. 4 pieces, a queen, castle, rook e1, black, nothing developed. Practically this is winning. Well, Hodgson opponent took with the pawn, and here a bit weird why Hodgson didn't play h3, which would have won immediately. He first played castle, but I mean, a bit surprising he didn't go for h3, since if take, rook h2 winning the queen, and If queen h5, look at that. And if d5, or if e6, knight e5, look at that. Checkmate to the queen. Let me show it to you. And if d5, it's going to be the same checkmate. So actually, this is a no-no for Hudson, but well, still, after castle, he's just winning anyhow. I don't know, maybe he didn't see this bishop c4 out there, but still, game is over here. Knight g3, trapping the queen with h3. If a4, c4 can be played. Also, well, I mean, this is just depends on your mood, how you want to play. And something like this seems just killing. If queen d5, knight g6. I mean, this is just unbelievable. And just a new game. This way or another, because of such lines, those, or this opening is popular because of those tricky, creative possibilities to play. So c5, maybe a little bit questionable if white plays e4. But obviously g5. Alright, well, the main line, which we are going to analyze in our next video, is bishop g3, knight f6, e3, d6, and, well, going to have some amazingly strong players playing this line, including even Kasparov with the white pieces. Not very often, but at least played it. But then the question is, what happens if after bishop g3, if f4 being played? That is the first question. And secondly, well, what happened if white plays e4 immediately? Well, first let's answer the simple question. f4 is a wrong move because of e3. And now if h5, the best move is actually not bishop d3, but bishop e2. Because after knight f6, white captures and attacking the knight. And the basic old trick is simply not working, right? That the pawn is going to promote because of checkmate. And if the bishop blocks, then first check and now take. The pawn couldn't advance and trap the bishop. So this is simply not working. Well, so no h5, so e5. Still with the idea of trapping the bishop, but here it is white that has all the tactics in his favor with bishop take f4. And after take, no real possibilities to trap that queen. This is a threat, discover check, knight c3, and this position is like really just winning. So, this idea of trapping the bishop, absolutely impossible. So what about e4? Well, we have seen that against c5, it looks at least like very strong possibilities. Well, black have here two main possibilities. Rook h7 or knight f6. I believe that knight f6 is the white way to go. Rook h7 just seems to be very, very dangerous. Very complicated and very dangerous. Again, we have some creative players, actually both of them in this game, Gormali against Williams in Liverpool too. Again, British players, they like to play all those London system, Trompowsky, all those offlines systems, and they do it, well, very, very successfully, most of them. Let's look at Rook h7. Knight f6 would be the main move, I believe. Queen check. And here, a lot of complications. The game from 2006 between Gormali and Williams continued with knight f6, knight f3, knight f6. And here, knight to c6, stopping knight e5. Always, if d6, for example, This is always a dangerous possibility. Bishop take. And now just this stuff, the pawn cannot play to d5 because of knight e5, and just grabbing a pawn with, well, just advantage for white, maybe big advantage, I believe. So knight c6 should be played. And here, white took on g5. Knight e5 is definitely a major possibility. It almost transposing to the same position, only that black pawn is on h4 and not on g5. Well, what to say about those positions? Extremely, extremely complicated and messy. But this is exactly what the white players would like, right? No basic theory, just some messy stuff. In the game, white took on g5. Black took on e4, of course. Knight e5 right now. And then we are looking at this position. Bishop e2 is even a possibility, but white took immediately. And here, I believe black played wrong. Well, obviously he did. He got kind of crushed here. Black should have put a fortress or blockade along the light squares. For example, playing something like d5. If bishop e2, g4 is important possibility. Now you see the difference having a pawn on g5 and h6, h4 as compared to previous lines. And after knight to c3, well, now e6 is a very strong move. So this d5 is a very important idea. After capturing, well, still was possible to play something like that. And yes, white capture, and I believe white is already better now, but at least black is in the game. Bishop e7. The structure, if black can exchange queens, black has big advantage, I believe, or advantage. His king is obviously the weak spot. After bishop b4, well, that's just game over, because after take, white is not going to take on c3, but play bishop c4. Those blockade on the light squares were indeed kind of important. And now, of course, not taking. This is going nowhere. h4, opening the lines for the rook. After bishop e6, bishop take, black just resigned, because after queen take, white has this nice little check. The rook cannot block, and that is just enough for white. Gormali against Williams in Liverpool 2006. But maybe there is even possibly a better continuation for white, which on move 6. You know, this line white crushed black, but black didn't play that well. But on move 6, instead of allowing the capturing of the knight, what happens if, or attacking the knight, if white first take on g5 and now play this way? If knight f6, queen g6. So how about take, knight h6, knight c3, and here probably e6 is maybe black's only move, or at least best move. Again, blocking the light squares. Black played again super actively with c5, but this is just losing after castle. And those are some decent players. Black took, queen a5, and only here to resign after white forced continuation. Can you see it? Well, if you suggested rook d5 and rook f5, that's it. I mean, I wonder if, just taking the queen, the bishop and the queen, maybe there's even something more. But this rook h7, absolutely very, very dangerous. But what black can play instead of rook h7 is what many of the normal, strong Dutch players are playing. For example, Melaniuk, one of the most notable, okay, not top 10 player in the world, but at his peak, I think he was top 30, 40, like he was 2600 when 2600 was worth a lot. Maybe he was even top 20 at some point or close to it. So after e4, knight f6. Now the question, what to play after this move? Aha, this is the way. Bishop g3, f4 might transpose instead of taking the knight. This is a game of Gustafsson against Balinov, a draw from 2000. Take, queen take. Well, the bishop is trapped. And here, okay, white can give check immediately, white can move his bishop immediately. Let's see, just checks, one example. Take, take. f4, and without too many complications, well, this position is quite okay for black. d5 is possible. This is what was played in the game. Complicated stuff. Let me show you how it continued all the way. It's very, very interesting position. Like, white has the most horrible pawn structure, but you know, he has quite a lot of initiative going. It was Linert against Melaniuk, Varsha, 2008, and a draw. Now let's look at bishop g3 immediately. Bishop g3, f4 of course, queen h5 might transpose. Black is not going to be that scared playing with his king on d8 because the pawns are so powerful around it protecting it. He's not really scared. So, and black also has no rush at all capturing on g3. Actually, bishop d7 was played in this position. e5 is a very interesting possibility. A very interesting one. Let's look at bishop d7, castle, bishop d6, knight b d2, king e7, followed with rook to g8, then take, very unclear position. Moishenko, very strong player with these days against Jakobiak from 1999, and black ended up winning this one. And another possibility, well, black immediately took. I actually not certain I like this move so much. I prefer more bishop d7 or e5. Black can take whenever he wishes. Well, because now he has to move the queen from the open file. But alright, all in all, it's probably just okay. a6, an important move, I think. Not allowing exchanging of the knight and gaining off that square, which means maybe white should have played bishop b5 earlier. And this was with some complicated position. Orchek against Melaniuk from 2006, and black won this one as well. Overall, we have seen some extremely tricky line, extremely complicated. But again, it is based on the fact that black allowing those. If black plays move 4, knight f6, well, as some, for example, one of ICC commentators, Grandmaster Ilescas, at his peak, top 10 player in the world, top 10, top 15, he is the one played against Kasparov, the game we will see on the next video, and he showed that black can get very decent game in a very reasonable style without all those complications. But this will have to wait for our next video. Bye-bye.